Oh, maybe there's no drum roll tonight, actually.
We
But round of applause anyways.
Yay.
Sorry, we misled you with the drum roll.
It's really all good. It's all good. I can ad-lib for you.
Perfect. You'll be our new drum roll. So thank you all for joining us here tonight at the Adventurers Club of Los Angeles. I'm here with the amazing Michaela Guzy, who is a producer, host, writer, and entrepreneur, among many other things. And Michaela, I think you have a short clip to kind of introduce yourself to everybody.
Well, I mean, I can't do what I do and not show you first.
Absolutely.
And I'm also from Missouri, which is the show me state. So
Perfect.
it just kind of like goes with the flow, right?
So, Rich, do you have that clip in the back? The journey on?
I've been houseless, not homeless, since June of 2020. I'm a solo female traveler that lives in the world's best luxury hotels, cruise lines, and even safari tents. I'm Michaela Guzy, and I'm sleeping around safely.
Travel unites us and bridges our differences. It's by meeting someone and experiencing their environment, sharing a table, breaking bread, and having real conversations that we come to know and respect one another. And yet, there's a paradox. Global tourism is a $1 trillion industry with a carbon footprint of about 8%. So how does the eco-conscious traveler diminish not only their carbon footprint, but also their cultural footprint? This is the question every eco and culturally conscious traveler faces. And this show gets to the bottom of it with surprising results. Because at the end of the day, you never know the people you'll meet.
Of people who understand we've got to help people as well as animals. And to help people and animals, we must save the environment. So it's all interconnected. You're so brave.
How do you become a sustainable traveler and really make sure that you're responsible when you're traveling to research before you go, to make sure you're working with companies and organizations that are truly operating in a sustainable fashion in the destinations that is not hurting the very area that you're visiting?
There's a sense of hope and commitment from the government to protect the local wildlife, the natural habitats, create educational opportunities for its children, and job creation for its people through sustainable tourism development.
You would tell me to give us
Amazing. Very cool.
So I have to call Randy edited that for us. He's sitting right there. So.
Big round of applause for Randy. Amazing work. So clearly, with these shows, you travel all the time. But for you, travel isn't just a career. As you said, you're not homeless, but you're houseless. And so travel is kind of your life, too. You're all over the place. Can you tell us a little bit about just where you're going after
How
this?
it became a jet set digital
yeah,
nomad.
I mean, you've told me a little bit about your schedule coming up and where you're coming from. You've got quite a bit going on. You're always on the road.
Yeah, I don't like to spend my limited energy and time thinking about material items. So my life is pretty crazy, and I like to spend the energy that I do have to create the work that we're doing so I can properly showcase people's stories and those people that trust me to share their stories. But even when I'm in Los Angeles and New York, I've worked with the houseless for 20 years. And I feel very connected to them, and I understand what it means, the uncomfortableness of not having a home.
Sure.
And so it's a passion and a purpose. And my friend Brandy, who's sitting here, works with houseless veterans. And I joke with the houseless folks that I work with every week, because they think it's really funny that I'm houseless. And I was like, no, but the difference is I have friends and family that will never let me fail. And so it's different than what you're experiencing.
Yeah, very much a choice.
Yeah, it's a little different. But the choice of not having the material possessions allows me to focus on the work that I want to do and the places and the purposes that I want to go out. And we say 3 Ps at the People You Meet: people, places, purposes. And so I like to focus on those things. And I'm so great to have like a global community of people that help support me in telling those stories. So I do feel very blessed, and having passionate people like Randy that also see the mission. And he used to run CBS post-production, and the fact that he works with my little company is amazing. So thank you for people that just feel differently. And I think, I ran, you were asking me how I got into this in the first place. It's not that I'm like an influencer that fell out of the sky. In a previous corporate life, I refer to myself as Corporate Michaela. And 13 years ago, I was the youngest vice president at American Express, and I ran publishing for travel and leisure and departures and food and wine and executive travel, and I was the liaison for all of the travel category to Time Inc., who was about to buy us. And before that, I had worked at Condé Nast, and I had worked at Hearst, so I had run all these publishing companies, and I had launched travel publications. So I've been in the travel industry going on almost, I don't want to date myself, 3 decades. But
Before you were more on the corporate side of the travel industry, correct?
in publishing,
In
yes.
publishing,
So most of my roles, I worked in the ad agency side, and then I was selling. And the part of the reason I have the CEOs of airlines and cruise lines and hotels and destinations on speed dial is I used to sell them advertising. And I used to work at American Express, and I used to handle millions of their dollars. And they knew me, they liked me, and they trusted me. And I was very unorthodox in the corporate world, but like somehow I was just getting stuff done. And I think that's truly like my ability to connect with people.
Right.
And then through a series of different life events, personal and corporate, and being a young woman, and I kept being promoted, which was a huge compliment. But as they started doing all like the testing at American Express, they would be like, what motivates her, and like, what's this, and she's going to go into international security and privacy training. I would do all these tests and psychoanalysts and blah blah blah. And I finally went into this one test, and they were like, there's only one person in this room that's not motivated by money or power. And the worst thing that they could have done was call me out and put me in the middle of the room. And it was like, it's her. And I was like, you just made everyone hate me so much more, because I was already the youngest manager and female. And now they know that my secret sauce is actually I'm not motivated by money or power. I actually wanted to be a part of the change.
Okay. So that's what motivated you, was wanting to be a part of the change.
Yeah. Well, and the change then was multifaceted, right? I've now, in the 13 years of running my own company, like part of the change means something way deeper than I even thought possible than back then. But back then, I realized that, I was selling magazines, and they're great magazines and they're great brands. But I realized that my partners, be it hotel companies or cruise lines or destinations, they were already starting to be like, is it ad pages, or ad pages the way of the future? And in reality, it wasn't. And I was so sick of going to these partners that I had established these wonderful relationships with. Like they still remain my friends to this day. And I was like, I don't want to go back to them when they've told me that they don't want that thing, and try to sell them something that's disguised as something else. Like, I'm Midwesterner. Like, we are tried and frickin' true. Like, all you have is your honor and your word at the end of the day. And I was like, please don't make me do that anymore. And that wasn't obviously popular in corporate America, where they needed to make some money.
Sure.
And so I accepted the promotions a few different times with the idea that I was going to be able to make real change and real impact. And that just really, it wasn't the case. And so in 2012, I had been living with a guy in New York, and we had dated for 8 years. A great guy, but like, I just woke up one day and I was like, okay, I need a system eject moment. This is not my life. Like, I don't want to live in the corner apartment in New York City. I don't want this corporate job. If the end goal is my boss's job, he's horrific. If you don't want your boss's job, you're not in the right job, by the way. Like, get out. So I just had to blow up life, and it
Right.
was scary and freaky, but yeah.
And you blew up life by going to Africa for 3 months by yourself, right?
Yes. So broke up, moved out, lived on my own for the first time in my entire life, and then went to Africa on a one-way ticket.
How long were you alone for the first time in your entire life before you went to Africa for the first time? Like, alone
1
too?
week.
Okay, wow.
1
So
week.
you
I had an apartment
really
for 1 week.
just
And
went
then,
alone as much as you could.
and this, by the way, this was pre-Airbnb. Like, Airbnb had never existed yet, okay? And so I had a really strong community of travelers already from what I was already doing in corporate America. And so, like, one of the conferences I spoke at a lot was called the Adventure Travel Trade Association. And I had spoken in like Chiapas, Mexico, and Scotland, and Namibia, and had met all these wonderful travelers. And so, kind of through word of mouth, these people that were running adventure travel companies would call me and be like, hey, I have a friend from Brazil that's coming through New York. And I'm adorable, and I have really good taste. And I had a really cute apartment in the West Village, like on the most prized block. And I was like, look, I don't even need to make money off them, but if they could just cover my cost, they're welcome to stay. And if they make a mess, then, they need to clean it. But like, whatever, like, as long as they cover my cost, I don't care. And so that started me on the idea of one lock closet. The rest of the stuff was just material possessions. And like, honestly, the worst thing that ever happened from renting my apartment was like someone spilled red wine, and they called me and apologized, and they paid for the rug to be dry cleaned and bought me some new wine glasses. Like, it was fine, But long before Airbnb, I was renting out my place and traveling abroad,
Right.
even when I was still in corporate America.
Okay, wow. And so when you took off for Africa, did you know at that time that you were going to be starting this show, that you were going to be, what took you
No.
there, and what were you looking for?
So I had tried to quit a couple different times from my corporate job, and they always thought I was going to go to their closest competitor. And I tried to be diplomatic as a good Midwesterner, and they just weren't hearing what I was saying. I don't know if they weren't hearing, or they didn't want to listen to me, or they just couldn't understand what I was talking about. But I was like, I don't know how else to tell you. Like, you're all on the Titanic, and I want off. Like, I see the iceberg of publishing, and like, you won't move. And I'm like, I'm out. Like, I'm off like a prom dress. Like, ta-ta, like, off I go. And they were like, oh my God, she's going to go to the closest competitor. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what is wrong with these people? And like, not that their closest competitor wasn't poaching me, they were, and I actually love her as well. But I was
Sure,
like,
you just weren't biting.
I was like, I don't want, like, if I'm blowing up my life, like, I'm doing this the right way. I'm going all in.
Right.
And so it was terrifying, as you might
sure,
imagine.
yeah.
But so they ended up, like, confidentially probably, like, negotiating what they call like a gardening leave in the UK. So for 4 months, I wasn't allowed to work. I wasn't allowed to make money, but then they compensated me and made me whole during that time. And honestly, it was a blessing in disguise, because I probably would have gone out and tried to find a job, but it gave me this breathing room where I actually got to think for the first time in like months. And like, I will tell you, I'd always dreamt of going to Africa, like from the time I was a little girl. And my parents didn't really let me watch television. But when I would run away from home, my grandparents lived through the backyard and we had a connecting gate. And so when I'd tell my parents to peace out, I was running through the backyard to my grandparents' house. And Grandpa Buzz and Rita would like indulge me with things like chocolate pudding and let me watch television. And so my grandfather would show me like Johnny Carson, which by the way, like total non sequitur. But my dad was head of homicide for St. Louis, Missouri. And one time I stole his recorder and went and recorded 101 pickle jokes over a murder confession. And I thought Johnny Carson was so debonair, and so like as a little girl, I've had this voice like since the time I was like this tall with like pigtails, and people they'd hear me speak and they'd be like, Jesus, like why is this little girl with this deep voice? And I would be like, huh, like, and so imagine my dad's like playing the recorder at the homicide department. Yeah. So I never lived that one down, but and that tape, by the way, exists. My mom is like holding it ransom.
Oh, she's
she has it. She has it. You know, it's somewhere. It's somewhere. But my grandfather would also show me National Geographic, and he was a fighter pilot in World War II and was shot down behind what was then Yugoslavia, and believe it or not, the luckiest thing that ever happened to him was that his parachute didn't open. And so he plummeted to the ground, and the Nazis left him for dead. And I briefly touched on this in my Croatia film, which a few of my friends were at last year for the premiere. And the Nazis found him and left him for dead because he was so mangled. And actually, the Croatians, who were like on the other side of the coin, dragged my grandfather into a barn and nursed him back to health. And what was so cool when we were filming in Croatia in late 23, one of our interviewees, I can't even tell you, like I felt my grandfather buzz everywhere. Like he's long been dead. And I was just like, I know he's here. Like I feel him.
You have that connection.
Yeah, it was so weird. And so then I'm interviewing this like lovely man, and he drove up in this like super cool Jeep, and I film with all guys, and they're like, you know, having a hard on over the Jeep. And he was like, I'm sorry, I'm probably not supposed to say any of these things, but so he ends up taking all of them for like a spin in his like military vehicle. And afterwards he's like, you know, can I take you? There's this military like memorabilia sale down the road. And I was like, oh my God, I want to go. And the tourism board like, no, you have to keep going on the film. And I was like, okay, fine. And so we said no. And I texted the guy and I was like, if you happen to see anything with Leo Buzz Gamp's name, like please like buy it, send it to me, like whatever. In 30 minutes, he was like, is this your grandfather? And he had found all these documents of like where my grandfather had been shot down.
That's
like,
amazing.
Yeah, like just to see his name in print, like the hair on my arm stood. And honestly, it was because of perfect strangers that found him.
Right. That's
and even though they were on the opposite side, they risked their lives to drag my grandfather into a barn and nurse him to health. And it took him 6 weeks to get back to a British camp where they finally flew my grandfather home.
What an incredible connection to have and to find across the world. And it kind of seems like exactly what your show is about, is those kind of human
connection.
Yeah.
It's hard to be an asshole when you're looking someone in the face and you realize, wow, there's just a person over there that wants pretty much all the same things as me.
Absolutely. So you, kind of going back to the beginning again, you found your love of travel with your grandparents. And
we were landlocked in Missouri, and we didn't have money, so I really didn't get to travel.
Right, landlocked in Missouri, but looking at these National Geographics, and that inspired you years later to just take off and go to Africa on your own. Had you done any sort of filmmaking before this?
No.
And
I mean,
did you go there with the intention of filmmaking?
So two things there.
Yes.
One, which I'm actually so excited about, is one of the first things that's like such a vivid memory for me in watching National Geographic with my grandfather was I remember seeing these people with like these big rings in their lips. And I remember seeing they're like jumping over cows, like 6 cows. And I was just like, what is going on? And I remember turning to my grandfather and being like, I want to go there and I'm going to film that. And I'm going to ask those people why they jump over cows. And my grandfather was like, yes, you will, honey. Just pay cash. And I was like, okay. He was, people of that era, cash. But what's really exciting is through an organization that I'm now affiliated with, I went to the Most Traveled Peoples Conference in Equatorial Guinea in 2023. And they asked me to come back as a speaker in Ethiopia. And, just through being curious and the people you meet and whatever, I started digging around to the different people the local people that they had orchestrated as the pre and post trip. And this one gentleman, I started looking at his thing, and to me, his trip stood out more than most, partially because he was going to those southern tribes, which is where the people jump over the cows, which I still haven't seen. And I was just like, oh my God, I have to do this. And so then I'm a journalist and a documentary filmmaker, so I started researching him. He's got a crazy following and like is local Ethiopian and has an adventure travel company that truly seems like it focuses on true, authentic, immersive connection, but also sustainability. And I was like, oh my God. So I reached out to the guy on Instagram directly and I was like, hey, I'm speaking at the conference. Here's me. I was walking around Central Park's reservoir having like a conference call with him. And he's like, why are you heavy panting? Why are you speaking to me? And I was like, I don't sit still. And like, this is how I think. And he was like, okay. And we just got to talking. And he actually is now creating his own post-trip for me and one other photographer and anybody that would want to join us, based on like my childhood dream being realized of going to see these southern tribes.
Amazing.
And so I'm going to do that for the first time in November, and I am so psyched.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Pretty jazzed.
Well,
pretty
I hope
jazzed.
that you come back and tell us all about that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be creating some content with this guy, so tune in on the gram.
Absolutely. So that's incredible. So you're really having this childhood dream realized.
Yes.
And it sounds like you said that in the corporate world you were uninspired by what you saw happening when you saw this person who reached out to you doing travel sustainably and making connections with people. Is that what you felt you were missing?
So to clarify, with corporate America, I was not inspired by I was in publishing and we were trying to sell ad pages to people. And all the brands are great that I worked for. I worked at Condé Nast. I launched Town and Country Travel and Weddings. I ran Travel and Leisure, and then Travel and Leisure Departures. All of them are great brands. I loved them, and I loved and still love a lot of the people that are behind those brands. But the way that we were doing business was not the way of the future, and I knew that in 2008, like when we were having the economic crisis, which I managed to like navigate, but I just knew that my time was limited and that I wanted to leave and figure out what was new and next in media. And I knew that involved digital, social, and video. But those weren't things that were being talked about in 2008. And I also knew why I love to travel is meeting new people. And like, I did a podcast interview the other day, and I was like, look, we all like to stay in a luxury hotel. Who doesn't? And is it great when there's fret-a-tay linens and it's so soft and fabulous? Sure. But are you going to go to a dinner party and sit there and talk about the fret-a-tay linens that you said? No, you'd be such a snore and everyone would think you were a total snob. Your social currency comes from the experiences that you've had, and not in a braggadocious way, but in a way of inspiring and connecting or like making a difference. And like that was a trend that I saw coming a long time ago, and now I believe it's more common than before, which is people actually want to make a difference. And so that's when it comes to even the title of our talk tonight, what I call regenerative storytelling. That is that you want to leave the people, places, and people, places, purposes that you experience when you travel better than how you found them. And that usually comes from some kind of combination of a sustainable travel company, which we like to cover editorially, and connecting them with responsible travelers. And so it's not just the travel company that has to do their part. Like, travelers have to be responsible, and that goes beyond like you not changing your sheets every night. Come on, you don't change your sheets probably every week when you're at home. So like, why all of a sudden are you going to have the hotel changing them for you every night? I don't know. Like, just,
Right.
but that's the most basic level.
Okay. So for travelers who want to travel sustainably, what does that look like? How do you identify places that are going to help you travel sustainably? What are some tips that you have for travelers
Sure.
who want to do that?
Well, I mean, part of that comes, and that's part of what I see as like my job on the planet. My purpose on the planet is to create content that educates and inspires people. Like, nobody wants to feel bad about like where you're going on vacation. And if you want to have a plop and flop on the beach because you're so burnt out, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I just think that the idea of your vacation only being the 1 week holiday and the all inclusive in Mexico with margaritas, like, I think that's few and far between. And even what I would call like less experienced travelers are looking for some kind of like more deeper, more meaningful connection. Like on Monday, I leave for Las Vegas, not my favorite place, but leaving for Las Vegas for the first International Media Marketplace Luxury Conference. And I was responsible for lining up 22 speakers. And it's really fascinating, like what's going on in the travel world right now. And it's exciting for me to bring together leaders in the industry that are responsible for curating the experiences that a good majority of us will see in their advertisements and ultimately experience when you go on vacation. So I try to be truly at the thought leader level. Like, even if I'm not necessarily directly writing about it, I'm at the forefront of connecting people and putting together ideas that
Right.
will ultimately be distilled to the end consumer.
Okay, amazing. And as a traveler, what can we look for to travel sustainably?
Well, I do think it's really tricky in this world. I was having a conversation with someone at dinner tonight about ChatGPT. And as a creator, as a writer, I'm actually really hesitant to use ChatGPT because there's not a lot of laws. There's no precedent. And so in my case, because I am a creator and I care about my intellectual property, I'm very nervous about who owns what I'm talking about. So if I were to use ChatGPT to help me write an article, even if I was guiding it, or even help me write a post, there could potentially in the future become a time where there could be an argument made that I didn't create that thing fully. And so that is why I don't use ChatGPT to write any of my content. Now, I am putting together 22 speakers in a conference next week, and we have 4 panels of amazing experts. And I sat in on all these panels and curated all of their questions and the panel discussions and the descriptions and the key takeaways. And I was like, oh my God, like, how am I going to do this? And then I was like, you know what? Let me funnel one of these into ChatGPT and see what happens, because I need to distill these into now. Each panel needs to have 6 distinct questions that fits on a frickin' slide behind us on stage. And it was great. And I put all this information in, and in seconds, it came back and I was like, not this, yes, that. Does this sound snobby? Like, does this sound entitled? Okay. And it was great because it'd be like, yeah, it does. We would recommend you change it to this. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And then I would like change a few words and put it. And by the end of it, I had these 6 very poignant, short, but like direct conversation starters, which is exactly, as a moderator, what you want to curate a conversation. I was like, okay, here's a great application of how technology can move something like luxury and sustainable travel forward.
Right.
So,
Okay, very interesting. So in addition to sustainable travel, one of the focuses of your show too is culturally ethical travel. Can you talk a little bit about that?
yeah, well, I mean, when you're going to a destination, like even though you're on vacation, you have to remember the people you're meeting live there. Like this is their life. And there are certain destinations that are more extreme than other ones. And so right before the pandemic, I had the opportunity to go film with Dr. Jane Goodall in Sierra Leone. And that was pretty exceptional because most of the time when we go film somewhere, we're trying to film real people that you would meet in a destination. Because for me, you're not meeting me when you go to a place. So I try to make our content actually not about me. I try not to be a host. I try to be a curator of local hosts, the actual people you'll meet, whether you're going to Australia or going to Turkey or, in this case, Sierra Leone, which we're showing right now. And the idea is that I want you to be able to know how to go, but who to know when you're there, to have that authentic local experience. And so each one of our show formats is a little different. Oh, the people you meet. They're usually longer. I used to care more about the exact time when we were trying to focus on traditional broadcasts. But, every crisis breeds innovation. And thanks to the pandemic, streamers and in-flight entertainment came about, and now I can just tell the story I want to tell without being worried about how long the piece is, which has been beautiful because I don't have to cut out something just because, and I don't have to include something just because.
Right.
So I just tell the story that needs to be told. The People You Meet is very much people, places, purposes. The destination is just the backdrop. And so it's really a human interest story. With Sleeping Around Safely, that truly started, I was breaking up, moving out. I was living in Tribeca in New York. It was 2020, dark, dismal days of the pandemic. Everybody was locked inside. We weren't allowed to leave. And I had started a podcast called The Inspiration Station, and I broadcast 125 episodes 5 days a week. Like, I had never done that before. I just frickin' did it and figured it out. And it wasn't always, it was often messy, but there's a lot of forgiveness, grace for folks doing things in the pandemic. And one of the beauteous moments that came from that, one of my hotel partners called and was like, oh my God, you're breaking up, you're moving out, like, where are you gonna go? And I was like, I have no idea. And he was like, well, all of our hotels are at 0 and 3% occupancy. If you just come out west and tell people it's safe to travel again, we'll host you. And so that was the beginning of me sleeping around safely. And I have been houseless, not homeless, since June of 2020. For the most part, I stay in hotels and now cruise lines and safari tents. And occasionally when I pop back in a place like Los Angeles, I stay at my friend Amy's house, who lets me stay in her second room with my own bathroom. I have my own parking spot. It's great for my non-car. But truly, that show was started to show people it's safe to travel. And so in the early days, it was just social posts. We were filming UV robots and people wearing facial masks. And very quickly, people started writing me and they're like, pardon my French, Michaela, F the UV robot and the mask. Is the Dude Ranch open? Can my kid go out on a horse? Is the spa open? Can my wife go there? Does she have to wear a mask? Is the bar open so I can go have drinks? And I was like, oh, people are over this. Got it. And so we very quickly pivoted and made Sleeping Around Safely a show. And even in the early days, it was only a few minutes long. Now they're 14 minutes long. That timing could change, I caveat, with season 4 onwards. But I got its start on Instagram. And so to date, we have tried to navigate Instagram and its ever-changing formats and whatever they're prioritizing at the time. But I think we're moving past that now because We're now in season 4. We're winning awards at film festivals. It has its own distribution. So I'm kind of done doing what Instagram wants to do. And their 3-minute, I'm not going to promote you to our non-followers. I'm like, okay, well, fine. Then you're not going to get my show. So yeah, we're taking our power back, but it's a great show and I love it. It's I dare I call it a traditional travel show. I don't think it's traditional at all, but it is more of a travel show.
More about the destination and the people you meet is.
Yeah, well, so like I would say each Sleeping Around Safely probably focuses on one smaller region or one hotel. And if it is about a hotel, then that hotel, is taking us around their neighborhood. They're showing us the experience. And so like, even if we filmed in Singapore and we have 5 episodes on Singapore, which is geographically quite small, each one of the episodes is about that hotel, that neighborhood, and the experiences you would have if you stayed there.
Right, so kind of hyper-focused in one location.
Yeah, but always empowering local people. Like you still only see me at the very beginning saying, hi, I'm Michaela Guzy and I'm sleeping around safely in Singapore. And then you never see me to camera again. The whole rest of the time, it's me empowering local people to tell their story. And again, going back to, that's a person you're going to meet. And I'm not from Singapore. I'm from Missouri. But like, good news, like, people really seem to glom onto me, and I'm going to introduce you to some really cool people. So like, I got quite a Rolodex, and I'm happy to share it with you if you're open to hearing about it.
How do you choose the people that you want to highlight, the stories that you want to highlight? Because I'm sure you meet a lot of people in your travels.
Yes.
So what is that?
I don't own material possessions, but my most, I mean, other than my server that I had to build last year, which was a whole nother situation, my most prized possession are truly my collection of community that I've curated all around the world. And there's almost nowhere I can go now where I don't post something and someone's like, oh my God, sometimes it's a closer friend. And actually that's how our 3rd show, Living Like a Local, came about. I think this is a perfect example of the way that the world is shifting if you're open to it. I went to Portugal. We received word that one of our episodes was winning an award. So I went to the film festival, slightly off season and up south of Lisbon. And I had been to Portugal once before the pandemic for a few days. It was lovely. I loved it. But I didn't feel connected to it per se, but I loved it. It was great. I was like, I'll come back here at some point. But it wasn't like a urgent need. And then we found out we were winning this award. I go and I post on social media like, yay, we won an award. And 25 people that I actually really care about from around the world, like friends from South Africa, from Australia, from London, New York, San Francisco, LA. I moved to Portugal and I was like, wait, what? What are we talking about? And so I was like, okay, I need to stick around and find out what's happening. And so I canceled my return trip and I spent the month of October going to see all these friends in and around Portugal. And I self-filmed and self-funded the filming of a pilot, which is called Living Like a Local, which is now streaming on Modern Luxury and hopefully making it into a full-fledged series like our others. But it was so great. Like 1.4 million Americans moved to Portugal as of October of last year.
What do you think inspired that big move?
Well, I mean, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. What's awesome about it?
It's also affordable.
Okay.
And I'll get political in a moment, but without expressing my own personal interest. But what I discovered was not just Americans, like people are looking to live differently. And like, where are places that make it easier for Americans, but also Europeans and South Africans and even Australia, like where are places that are making it easier for people to live abroad? And by live abroad, there's a bunch of different definitions, which I think is really fascinating. There's always been a pretty stark contrast between, second and third homeowners and retirees, i.e. people with lots of money, to digital nomads, which is a newer term, remote workers, people who are having a leap year or gap year, whatever we're calling it these days. And all of a sudden, all those psychographic mindsets, even though they have very different financial spending power, are living quite similarly to each other. So the people that I know in New York that had the McMansion in Connecticut, their kids went to college and they're like, we're empty nesters. We're going to sell the McMansion and we're going to get a pied-à-terre in Manhattan. And now we're going to go either travel the world or we're going to get a second or a third home in a place like a Portugal that's going to make it easy for us to not pay double taxes, et cetera. And so places like Portugal, Malta, South Africa, even Spain, although Spain's kind of pulling back because they're overrun, are making it easier for people to move there and giving them tax breaks and benefits. And so it's a very interesting trend. And again, I'm not going to express my own point of view on politics, but a real estate company that I got to fund the edit of our pilot episode, Living Like a Local, they're called Atrium Real Estate. They started in New York City, but right before the pandemic, opened an office in Portugal, and they have been reaping the reward. And I was like, okay, so I was filming in October of last year. I was like, what happens with the election? And I was like, who do you want to win? And they're like, honestly, it doesn't matter. We're going to get so much money. Our phones are ringing. We have people on either side, like placing money on the wager of what's going to go down. And I was like, okay, interesting. And like, we timed the episode to release right after the president was announced, and they're doing just fine, we'll just say.
Okay.
So, doing just fine. And I think, no matter what goes on, like people who have money that they're worried about are moving their money offshores. And I think there's a whole new demographic of people. And I probably looked pretty weird to people in the way that I choose to live my lifestyle before the pandemic. But funny enough, like it took a global pandemic, but now I feel like a lot more people understand why I choose to live my life. I have always said experiences, not stuff, was kind of like my trend. But this panel that I'm moderating next week in Las Vegas, Preferred Hotel Group, which is a collection of one of the largest collections of independent hotels all over the world, especially at the top end, they had done their own luxury research study, and their trend forecast was meaning over material. And I was like, same, different. But it's showing up in research reports like all over the world.
So you're kind of like a trailblazer in that way now.
Fortunately or unfortunately, I'm always the first one to market with things, which makes I seem like a freak of nature for a long time, and then 5+ years later, people are like,
this is actually,
oh,
she's
Michaela.
onto something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exhausting, but like if we could just kind of all get on board and help make my life a little easier, that'd be great.
Do you consider yourself a digital nomad in a way?
Oh, I mean, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I
absolutely.
used to call myself a jet set gypsy, and I have been corrected on online from people that are like, you can't call yourself a gypsy. And I'm like, my personal opinion, not the opinion of your club. I'm like, if you look at the definition of a gypsy, I'm number one, not number two. I'm also saying it in a positive light. I think it's great that I choose to live this nomadic lifestyle. And also, I have some of the heritage. So like, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm just a global nomad. I don't know.
Absolutely. So we talked about making connections with people. As someone who travels as much as you do, how do you maintain connections with people?
Well, I mean, it can be exhausting, but I mean, this is the beauty of the internet and social media for sure, is that you can stay connected with people. And like the example I gave of posting something from Portugal, like, yay, we won an award. 25 people that I knew from around the world reached out to me
Yeah.
to be like, we live here now. And I extended my trip and I ended up staying with them.
Right.
I think the world is more connected than ever. When I go to Ethiopia in November, I'm first speaking at the Most Traveled Peoples Conference. And I'm I'm a slacker compared to the people at Most Traveled People. I've only been to 121 countries. They've all been to all of them, and some of them have done it twice. And they count now because they like counting these things and ticking these boxes. You know, they count regions and they count UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and I understand their passion, and I really like. They're very interesting, and I love spending time with them. And because they're out in the world in a similar way that I am, it makes it very easy for me to dip into their community and to be a part of it.
Right.
Unlike them, I don't care as much about keeping tick boxes
Tally,
on a
yeah.
website. I don't care. In fact, to me, the fact that I've been to Sierra Leone many times and spent a deep amount of time, and actually, this morning, one of my interviewees from Sierra Leone, and I haven't been back since December of 2019, he wrote me to tell me that he loves following my journey and that he has moved to Rwanda and this is what he's doing. And it's lovely. Like, people reach out to me and feel a connection to me. And I do think it's partially me and my personality, but I think when you interview people and do what I do for a living, like, I think it's such a blessing, and I take it in the highest regard when someone trusts me with their story.
Sure.
And, you know, sure, there's Dr. Jane Goodall, and that she's my she hero, and that was freaking amazing.
Amazing,
and, like,
I'm sure. Yeah.
life moment, you know. But
I'm sure it's harder to get people who aren't used to being on the camera to really open up to you in that
I mean,
way.
one of the highest compliments I've ever received, and I've received it many times, is someone that is just a real person, but doing an awesome thing. They were like, you made me feel so seen, and you made me not nervous. You made me feel very comfortable. And I was like, because I think what you're doing is awesome.
Yeah.
And I want to hold space for that. And also a lot of stuff that I do, I mean, this is live, obviously, but a lot of stuff that I do is not live. So if it is someone that is not used to being in front of camera, it takes the pressure off of them,
Sure.
so that they know that I have their best interest in mind, that I'm trying, I'm not altering reality. I'm a documentarian. I'm documenting reality.
Right.
But I want to showcase them in the best light, because there was something about them and their story and what they're doing that drew me to them in the first place.
Right, right. And I'd imagine that you're showcasing things that they're passionate about too, which probably gets them even more excited to open up. What are some of the stories that you've showcased that have stuck with you the most?
Oh gosh, so many. All right. So we were just in Zambia, and I'm still trying to figure out how to. Most of the time when I go film, we have someone that's helping us fund the production and the editing of the episode. And in the case of Zambia and Zimbabwe, I was able to get the travel expenses covered for myself. And then once a year, through a film festival that I've been working with and won a lot of awards in South Africa, I found up-and-coming filmmakers from sub-Saharan Africa and give them the opportunity to intern underneath me, to shadow me, and I take them into the field and I teach them how to film for a show like mine, but also how to potentially collaborate with travel partners. And in the hopes that they get hired by the travel partners in the future to do commercial work for them. And after my film festival, we went to Zambia and Zimbabwe. I won't take you through the craziness that happened, but I'm actually pretty impressed with myself. The morning I was flying from Cape Town via Joburg to get into Zambia to start filming the very next day, I got word that 2 young women that I was going to bring as interns that were supposed to be meeting me at the airport in 2 hours weren't going to come. And the tourism partners that put into this basically invested the equivalent of $20,000 a person to go on the trip. And I was like, what do you mean you're not going to come? And like, without getting into all that, I was like, oh my God, like, how is this happening? And so I was running around the Johannesburg airport buying camera equipment because they were also supposed to come with the camera equipment. And I called a guy that had never met me, that met me on a dating app, but I knew he had just filmed on Naked and Afraid. So we have to connect on that.
He's not here in the audience.
Funny that. And he had just filmed in Zambia the week before. And I was like, I know you don't know me, but here's what, and also it was 6 a.m. Here's what's going on. And I need 2 camera people with equipment to meet me in Zambia, ready to go for 11 days tomorrow.
Wow.
And he was like, call this guy. I didn't even ask who this guy was. I called the guy. The guy happened to be the head of the Zambian Film Commission. And I was like, I will be at this hotel in 7 hours. And he's like, okay. And so I was like so freaked out. And I was like, how is this happening? And how am I going to pull this off? I guess I'm going to film all this by I don't know. And sure as shit, he was there with 2 young men who had never been on a plane, who had never been on safari. They had 1 camera, no tripods, no microphones, no nothing. I sent one of them out with my credit card, which Chase called me and was like, there's definitely fraud. There's thousands of dollars being charged to your credit card right now. And I was like, no, yes, I mean to do this. Hopefully he comes back with the camera equipment because I don't even know his last name. But we left the next morning, and to watch the wonder through their eyes of like their first plane ride, their first boat ride, going to these luxury camps that we were going to. Like, we stayed at the former president's house in Zambia that had just been renovated into this like luxury palace. To watch these 2 young guys, they were just like, what the is going on? And like on one of our safaris, like we go out for the drive, and I have phone footage that I filmed of them because I was so in awe of their experience. And we were surrounded by 19 lionesses, and this young man was like, I can't film right now. And I was like, why can't you film right now? And he was like, there are lions everywhere. And behind him, you see the other kid. Oh, they're kids, early 20s. And Edward, I'm like, Edward, how you doing? He's like, I have the camera on the lions, on one of the lions, because there's so many lions. And it's so funny. And then when we got to Victoria Falls, they had another thing they hadn't seen in their own country. And here's this white, blonde American taking them to see all the wonders of their world that they've never had the opportunity to see. And to me, that just makes movie magic. And we had the opportunity to jump off Victoria Falls. And believe it or not, it was my second time doing it. And it's scarier the second time because you know what's about to happen. And I had a drone flying right in front of my face, and I meant to be delivering a line, and Edward was one of the guys, and he got voted to jump off the bridge with me. And Edward was like, what are we doing? And he could be my kid, okay? And he's got his arm wrapped around me, And he's looking, and the drone is in front of us, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Michaela Guzy," and he's like, "We jump?" And like we both jump off. And it's so funny if you see the footage, Edward at some point wraps his whole body around me, and he was like, "Oh my God." And I was like, "I'm glad you're not filming right now, because this would be terrible footage, and that we have a drone on us." But like, I mean, those are the moments that transform you in travel, is the experiences that you have with people. It's the stories that you can come back. And by the way, if you know any funders, we filmed it, and I want to put that forth as an episode for season 4. I just need to find some editing/finishing funds so that Randy can do his magic and get the episode out there. So
Yeah.
it's a call for anyone that wants to help tell that story.
Amazing. What an incredible story. We're almost out of time, but I feel like one question that everybody wants to know is, what was it like to interview Jane Goodall?
Oh, I mean, I literally looked at her, and she's so calm. So calm. And like, you have to imagine, like, I was with her for 4 days. I think it was like the equivalent of 111 degrees, like 1,000% humidity. And if you haven't spent time in sub-Saharan Africa, when I first left corporate America and went to work across Africa, people were late, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Like, we were supposed to leave. Like 20 minutes ago. We're going to be late for the thing and whatever. And I'll never forget, on that first trip, this Dutch guy comes up to me at a camp in Kenya, and he was like, "Where did you say you're from?" And I was like, "I didn't." And he was like, "Right, New York?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Can I give you a piece of advice?" And I was like, "Well, I bet you're going to do it anyway." And he's like, "The Swiss may have invented timepieces, but the Africans own the time. And the second you acknowledge you're in their home, your life might get a lot easier." And I was like, "Mansplain, drop." And I was like, "But noted. Got it. I am in their land, and this is not New York City, and I need to just get with the program." And somehow, I don't know how, because it was frustrating and late and whatever, somehow things just work out in Africa as they're supposed to, and I think a lot of things in life. And so I've done a lot of my own personal growth in all that time. So flash forward back to Jane Goodall, who I interviewed in Sierra Leone in 2019. At the time I met her, she was 85 years old. And it's hot and it's miserable. And they flew her there because they were going to give her the Order of Raquel, which is the highest award that their country could award someone. And I was mortified that they were like making it late for her, and like hours late for her. And I remember asking her, and I'm like, outside of our interview, I'm like, "How do you do this all the time? Like, I know you travel all around the world, and you deal with all kinds of crazy politicians, and like you deal with all their politics and fanfare." And she was like, "I'm just here to help the world." And I was like, "Okay, got it." And like, she was unflappable. Like, just not, like, nothing bothered her. And I was like, "Is it because you're vegan? Like, what is it?" And she is vegan, and if you think I'm a minimalist, this woman travels with like 3 outfits, and she's like, "I bring a different scarf, change up my look a little bit for nighttime." And I'm like, I mean, she doesn't, I knew I was speaking to someone that wasn't from this planet. Like, she's coming from somewhere different. She doesn't care about the same thing. She's released connection to the material, but she's still deeply connected to people. And I was telling you before this, even though I've talked about sustainability a bit, I mean, Home Slice is like at the forefront. And when I asked her about how sustainable travel applied to the future of Sierra Leone and tourism, and like, talk about a place that has seen all the shit. I mean, Ebola, mudslides, extreme poverty, Jesus, like these people. And then the pandemic, and I was like, God, can't they get a break? They're such good, warm people and doing cool shit. She describes sustainability as a three-legged stool. And she's like, you can protect the wildlife, you can protect the environment, but if the local people don't feel the positive impact of the inbound tourism dollar, the stool will never stand on its own. And we try to communicate that in all the messaging in which we do with our shows. And I try to leave people, despite, like, it would be, I think, disingenuous to do a show about Rwanda and not talk about the genocide. That impacted a lot of people. And, like, some of my friends are survivors. Like, they lost their father and their brothers, and they themselves were raped and living with HIV. I wouldn't be doing them justice if I didn't tell that story. But I hit the nail on the head at the very beginning of the episode. And then my goal is to show all the positivity that is emanating from the people that have been working for the past 20 plus years to make Rwanda a sustainable, beautiful destination to go visit. And there is art, there is culture, there is luxury, there's adventure. It's got all the things, and Colombia as well. Like, art, culture, design, great food, luxury for less. Like, these places have all the things, and one of the best ways to help people of a place is to go spend your money there.
Yeah.
And with great companies that are giving back to true local people.
Right. Amazing. Where can people find your shows?
Well, in the US, and it's hopefully changing even more so, but Modern Luxury Media have an app called LUX. It's available to all 135 million US households in the world, or in the US rather. And you can also find it on Apple, Vizio, Roku, Fire, but LUX is the most direct way. Travel and adventures are #1 section, and all 3 of my shows are right there on the home screen.
Okay, awesome.
We're in Qatar Airways. We'll have a U.S. domestic carrier hopefully before the end of the year. And KTLA here do a single weekend release of our shows. And then if you're going to watch shows in Africa, we are also on People's Planet in Africa.
Right. Well, many of our members travel to Africa regularly, so they'll
great.
have to keep an eye out for that.
That's one of my favorite closets. I've been houseless truly for 5.5 years, and I have storage units in Cape Town, LA, and New York, and soon Portugal. So.
And I guess my last question before we open it out to the audience, what do you want travelers to take away most from your shows?
I mean, honestly, to just be a responsible traveler when you go somewhere. You should do your research and or use a travel advisor. I think there's a huge misconception, like people think travel agents are dead, and it's actually quite the opposite. Travel agents have never had more business, especially at the upper echelon of things. Like, I'm going to a travel conference next week and the following week, and business is booming. And if you think about it, you hire a private chef and you'll hire a personal trainer. They have experience and know-how better than you in that particular field. And travel advisors go to travel conferences and travel the world, and they have a personal connection. So if you're missing your connection or your flight, or if you want special treatment when you go to a place, or if you want to know the best person to sustainably go see gorillas in Rwanda, like, they're going to know the best companies and hotels to do that with.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, let's open it up to the audience. And do we have any questions out there?
I'll kick it off. I'm just curious, with all your travels, have you ever had the completely unexpected that happened and that made it the adventure?
I mean, every day.
Just give us one.
I mean,
Just give us one of them.
Oh God, what one would I tell you? Well, I mean, kind of a funny one when I'm also humbling and maybe slightly inappropriate, but when I first left American Express, I was still I was releasing corporate Michaela, but she was still very much a part of me, very type A. And Muriel Truder, who's a luxury travel advisor out of Toronto, but originally from Zimbabwe, she owns a company called Ascari Travel. And she was literally like planning pieces of my journey, and I was getting them every few days, and I didn't know where I was going to go. And here I'm by myself in Africa on a one-way ticket. And I arrive in Africa, and day one, I was exhausted. And I meet this amazing Kenyan fashion designer, and she tells me what remains a de facto motto, most certainly for Africa, but I think really, truly for the world. And she just said, travelers come to Africa for the animals. They fall in love with the landscape, but they return for the people. And I was like, yes, fuck yes, I love that. And then the next day, I went by myself into the bush on my first safari in Laikipia in northern Kenya. And the first thing that happens is there's a leopard in my tent. And I'm like, what? It's in the tent? And like, yeah, I know. And they're like, oh, we'll get it out. And I'm like, how'd he get here? And so then, and they're like, don't walk by yourself. It's unfenced. And I'm like, yeah, like he clearly knows how to unzip tents. What? So then they walk me to dinner, and it's like 2 communal like tables, which is so awesome about safari, and you get to share tales from the bush. But I hadn't been on a safari yet, so I didn't have my tales from the bush just yet. And what was so crazy, and this is like how you know the universe is sending you signs that you're in the right place. The general manager of the hotel was going around to the 2 tables and saying hi and doing her job. And then she was coming back to sit next to me, and she came and she set a card down right in front of me. And I looked and I was like, Frank Castro, Adventure International. I was like, where did you get this? And she's like, oh, he's one of our guests. He's over there. And I was like, Frank? I met Frank the year before when I was still corporate Michaela, and I was at American Express, and I was speaking Chiapas, Mexico. And, when you're at a conference and people ask a question, but really they're just talking. He was the only person that actually like asked a real question, and we ended up like closing down the bar that night. And there he was, like right there. And so I ended up getting to go on my first safari with someone I knew. And it was so unbelievably special. And what was even more crazy was he was like, well, are you going to go climb Kilimanjaro? And I was like, well, I've always wanted to do that, but I don't think I'm going to have time on this trip. And he's like, okay, you've got time. And he's like, and I'm going to sponsor you. So he ended up the airline extended my trip with no fee, unheard of. His ex-girlfriend gave me her boots to climb. She happened to be the same size. What? And then I climbed Kilimanjaro with 19 men. And about a day-ish, I have a regular system. But with Diamox, things were a little off. And about a day in, I was like, uh-oh, I got to go. But, like, we're on a mountain pass, so, like, how does that work out? And so I kind of, like, try to pull one of the guys aside and, like, so, I'm Midwestern. We don't talk about these things, but I need to, like, go number 2. He was like, oh, yeah, you just got to shit against a rock. And I was like, what? And he was like demonstrating to me like how to lean over a mountain and like position myself so I could shit against the rock. And I was like, okay. And so then I'm like, but I can't have you guys near me. Like, you can't. And so all the guys are like, why are we going back down the mountain? And they're like, just go. And I was like, oh my God, what is going on? So meanwhile, they're just like over here and I'm over here, and, pooping is a little messy and it's sometimes loud. And I was on this medicine. And they're like, is she shitting? And I'm like, shut up! Oh my God, shut up! Oh my God, this is so terrible. And then even worse is they had to walk back around to come to the place so that we were going to be camping. So that was a horrible, unexpected moment. that I had to experience. So,
Michaela, I want you to really open up with us and tell you what really happened, okay? So,
That wasn't
any other
what you were
questions here? We
expecting.
got some questions right here.
This is probably a very, very tough question, but
Okay.
what place in the world that you've been to would you say is your favorite?
oh, okay. So I hate this question. You already called that one out.
figured.
But I hate it only because I love everywhere, right? Like I was talking to a friend that runs a hotel group called World Hotels, and I was like, when I get on a plane, even if I'm going back to see my family, I'm so excited. And I like the Leanne Womack song, like I've never lost my sense of wonder or gratitude. And when I'm, with those young men from Zambia, and I see the power that travel has to transform someone's perspective forever. Like they will never be the same because of that experience. And now they have a world of what's possible. If I can help do that through the shows that I create, and then hopefully inspire people to actually get out there in some way, like this to me is magic. But how I always pivot to answer your question on television is instead I answer the question of, what are some of my favorite places that have all the things? And I define all the things as they have authentic indigenous experiences, they have art, design / fashion, they have food, they have nightlife, they have luxury for less, they have adventure, they have nature. Peru has all of those things. South Africa has all those things. I keep a closet in Cape Town. I love, 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 love it. And more recently, I was just in March in Colombia, and I'm totally obsessed. Actually, my pants and my necklace are from Colombia. I cannot wait to go back to Colombia. The people are so warm, and it's right here, and it's so affordable, and like, just each one of the regions is so different from each other. And so if you can go on a 2-week vacation and we were horseback riding in the coffee region, which is where that Disney movie was filmed, Encantado. Funny, like so freaking random, I turned to my guide and I was like, I'm gonna make you famous, kind of joking because I was filming him. And he's like, I already am famous. And I was like, what? And he was like, I am Camilo from Encantado. And I was like, oh, okay, got you. And then Bogota, even though I was there more for a conference, I went on a fashion tour. I learned all about Colombian fashion, and with this young dynamo fashion designer who introduced me to all the other fashion designers, and I'm hoping to go back for Colombia Fashion Week. Mark my words, Colombia is going to be like a hotbed for fashion in the coming years. There's some magic that's happening there. And then we went to Medellin and Cartagena, and we also went and met a man that during their revolution was going into the townships and teaching children how to play musical instruments, to show them that they didn't have to be in these gangs and fight each other, but through music they could heal together and be together. And he took like 100 of them to Rome to perform at the Vatican with no money. Like they got there and they had no money. And he somehow like figured it out. We interviewed him, and I can't wait to share that story, because there's so many just everyday people that are doing crazy fucking shit that's amazing. And they're like, I'm going to figure it out for the betterment of humanity. What? Like, how cool is that?
Question. Ray in the back there.
Thank you for your presentation. One question that I have as it relates to media, it seems you're very much on the ground having these experiences, having these insights. Are there new innovations that you could potentially apply that you think could actually help push the medium forward?
You mean innovation in terms of like how you capture content, or like technology? All of the above. Well, I mean, thanks to the internet, like we all have access to information, and more so than ever before. And in 2012, when I first left American Express Publishing and went to Kenya, this is something I struggle with a little bit, was, you know, me, the traveler going into this place, was looking to have this experience where I was off the grid, where I was meeting this Maasai warrior who was dressed in traditional dress, that was living in the mud hut, that, you know, had no real access to technology, because I wanted to be transported to this different place. But through that conversation, I realized that actually there's some kind of fine balance between me having this authentic experience, but them also being able to move forward. And in those days that I spent with that man, we got into some pretty deep conversations, and as some of the traditions are female genital mutilation and are killing lions as they become a man. And he, at that time, could acknowledge that killing the lion was challenging for international tourists like me that were coming to see the lion. And he could understand that, you know, if suddenly there was no lion that was part of the Big Five, and that international inbound tourism dollars were a really big part of the economy of Kenya and other places in Africa, then that could potentially hurt the future of their economy and his job. And so he could see that direct impact. What was different was he was dating a young woman, and he was like, no, she's the love of my life, and she's the first person, not only of our generation, but of just anyone we know, to go to college. And she's going to Nairobi, and she's very smart. And I was like, wow, that's really amazing. He's like, yes, I let her go to college. And I was like, okay. But I was like, you know, like in different cultures, like no judgments here, you know, don't throw stones in glass houses. And he was like, you know, she's so smart and I'm so proud of her. And I was like, oh, that's really great. And over the course, I didn't go in like a battering ram like I might have done in a place like New York. Instead, I was like, you need to shut up and listen, Michaela, because you are in Kenya. You're not in New York City. And so I did, and I listened, and over the days, I built up data points around him and this woman and where he had openings to receive new information. And I was like, I think you respect me. And he was like, I do respect you. And I was like, and I think you respect your girlfriend. And he was like, yes, of course. I love her. I'm going to make her my wife. And I was like, so you know that female genital mutilation could potentially kill her, and it will hurt her no matter what, and she'll never enjoy being with you sexually. And he was like, what? And I was like, it's not my place to judge, but I'd really like you to sit with that before you guys make that decision, hopefully together. And he was like, okay, Miss Michaela, I'll think about that. You seem very upset. And I was like, and imagine, like I had taken days to temper myself. And a couple years later, he wrote me on Facebook. And, you know, thanks to social media and technology, I really do stay in touch with many of the people that I interview or that are my guides or my fixers. And he was like, Miss Michaela, my wife she's going to be my wife. She has graduated from college now, and we will not be getting female genitally mutilated. And I was like, oh, and I cried as I read the message. And I was like, yay! Because not only does that help that one woman, and it shifted his perspective, but that's no doubt going to trickle into their community of people. And so, you know, there is something to the power of one and making that impact just on one person, and knowing that that will micro influence. And I mean, hopefully it will have a macro influence, but at minimum, it's going to micro influence the direct connection of those people. Yeah, no, and it's. I hate social media, but I love social media.
I think we have time for just one more question.
Okay. I have a small question, but I know you said you were a minimalist traveler, so I'm always curious.
Well, I'm just a minimalist. I don't have a house or anything.
What's something that would be like a personal artifact that you travel with that maybe would be not on every traveler's list?
Well, I lost my dad suddenly in November of 23, and I carry a few little like mementos, my little altar for him, just small, pocket size. They fit in my carry-on, but normally. I have a lot of friends, luckily, that like my clothes, and I resell my clothes, and I've been doing it for 30 years. And so I actually just did a post about one of my favorite dresses, but like I've worn the dress so much that even though it's beautiful and it's perfectly fine, like it's kind of time to retire the dress. But for me, it's all about like jewelry and stuff because it's small, I can carry it, I can wear it. And most of the time, like most of my jewelry is someone that I've met in my travels that's maybe made me a thing or I've interviewed them. And so to me, they're just my little pieces of art that I can wear every single day.
All right. Thank you so much, Michaela Guzy, for coming here and joining us tonight at the Adventurers Club. I know you'll have lots more incredible experiences, so I hope you come back and join us again.
Yeah,
to tell
no,
us
I'd love
about
to.
those in the future. And thank you, everyone who watched us on the stream tonight. We do this every single week on Thursday, so please watch us again. And if you're in town, come on down to our clubhouse in Lincoln Heights. And that's going to be it for us tonight at the Adventurers Club. Thank you all so much.